Hey friends, I absolutely love sitting around a dinner table and talking about the end of the day activities with my kids and just eating dinner and talking and laughing and sometimes even telling them to stop talking so they can eat because they're so busy, running a story or talking about an experience that they've had and they're just not eating. um, But it also brings back memories, fond memories of sitting around my dinner table with my parents and my siblings and just thinking about all the beautiful stories that my dad, with the assistance of my mother, and how they just kept filling us up with stories. And for me, stories are important. And the value of stories, I think, are overlooked. And so I feel it's very important as a storyteller to make sure that you carry the audience, whoever's listening along, and trust the process, which I learned last video. A painful lesson is to make sure that they can hear you. And so I made sure my microphone was working this time. Um, but I have a story that I need to share before I move any more into higher, holier history. And it all started with Jared from Christian Homestead. If it wasn't for him, this channel, the ideas of everything will still be trapped within me. And so for him, I need to recognize him for helping me get out of my head. And so, Jared, thank you. And I actually need to take a segment from his interview with me to really emphasize a portion of why higher, holier history is so important. So, without further ado, welcome, friends, to Higher, Holier History. I am Jessica Taylor Robertson, and this is my heart.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared, and today I'm talking to Jessica Robertson. She is going to be starting a channel, but hasn't done so yet, which I'm making an exception for her because she's the reason that I got to go to Kirtland to view the eclipse. So I started going through my emails because a number of you have said that you wanted to start channels. And so I let a couple of weeks go by. And then she was the first one that sent me an email, and when I contacted her, she was doing a tour of the Kirtland Temple, and that's like what got the ball rolling, and the rest was history. So thank you, Jessica, for first of all responding and wanting to do a YouTube channel, because I think it's really important that we all use our voices, and this is a way that you can really carry your voice very far across the world. So thank you for doing that, and then thank you for making it possible for us to go to Kirtland. And also thank you to Jessica's friends in her ward, Tracy and Corey, who let us stay at their house. They just happened to be going to the Dominican Republic while this was happening, so their house was available, and it just all worked out perfectly. So I wanted to ask you, we already talked on the phone, Jessica, but really quick before we talk about anything else, can you kind of relay your experience on that day, on April 3rd, when I contacted you, what that was like for you going through the Kirtland Temple?
Yeah, so definitely I want the viewers to know that this experience, I think, needs to be shared because of just everything that you even said in how we connected. Um, this really is the Lord's work at hand. And just to kind of give a background, I moved to Ohio just 2 years ago from North Carolina. And prior to that, every time I read about Hiram or Kirtland, like something within me just like stirred. And I was kind of like, you are forsaking Nauvoo. Like Nauvoo's my sacred place, my happy place. But I have soon come and love and appreciate everything even so more now than before Kirtland. And so when we first moved up here, we went to Kirtland for my birthday, and I was so excited. I was just like, of all the heavenly messages the messengers, like the heavens were purely open in Kirtland. And I wanted to just like get some type of essence of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I walked those grounds, I didn't feel anything. I felt forsaken. Like I was like, why? Like, and I started praying within and I was just like, why am I not feeling anything? And the sweet spirit came in and says, now you know where I am not. And I was like, oh, yes, of course. Like, I understand now. And
Can I
so
say something really quick?
yeah,
Because before
go for
talking to
it.
you, I was talking to Tracy. She's the one that let us stay at her house. And we had this like exact same conversation because she had moved up to Ohio in 2020, which is the time that I moved to Kansas. It's also the same time that Tamara from Adirondack moved to Adirondack. So a lot of things were happening since then and ever since then. But I asked her about like did you go see the Kirtland Temple before the church purchased it, and of course she said yes, and she said the same thing like what you're saying right now. And I had the same experience recently in Independence, Missouri, going to the temple lot and also the Community of Christ temple, because that we also need that land for the 24 temple complex. And yeah, you feel like forsaken. It feels like something's wrong. It feels not good. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that.
No, and I mean it's like it's another testament, of what's going on, because when the kids and I went to Kirtland on April 3rd, in fact, and it's kind of funny that we actually ended up on April 3rd because we were supposed to go the day before, but because of all those crazy storms that went through the Ohio Valley, we postponed our trip. And like a prayer of my heart before we even went to Kirtland, when we found out that the Kirtland Temple was going to be opened and that the church, you know, um, secured it. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I was thinking of all the wonderful times, what do I want to say? Oh gosh, the words are just failing me now. Um, the historical context, like the dates, the specifics, dates that they were going to be remembering. And I was like, oh, I would have loved to be there on, when the day that it was dedicated and, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get there and I didn't think of April 3rd. Like in my head, like I'm just like, oh, we missed it all or whatever. And then they're like, you came on such a special day. And I was like, wait, what day is it? Like I just did not know. And then the sweet sister came in and she says, I'm not your tour guide, but I really feel that you should know this. And she says, President Nelson really wanted the world to have access to Kirtland from 20 days from the purchase date so that the world can experience these historical days in the temple. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, I just was like,
Yeah.
oh my word. So the kids and I, when we first arrived to the temple, they were like, Mom, it's so different. And we noticed right off the bat that the temple looked whiter. It looked bright. And I had a thought later on after I was like contemplating this, and the church, it's in possession of the church and it's where it belongs. And it was one of those moments I'm like, yes, this all feels right. And just tender mercies throughout. I got to see a temple friend and a fellow temple ordinance worker right before we entered. And it just little love notes from heaven. Like, I just feel like everything was just so perfectly aligned. And then you messaged me while I was just about to go into the temple. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like all these things are going on. But entering the temple, because I didn't do the temple inside the temple, but entering the temple and walking up those stairs and just taking my family to, I don't want to say like Holy of Holies, but like it's where the prophet saw
Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ, like we were in that very room and just sitting there, and the spirit was so strong, and it was just, sorry, I'm a crier.
That's okay.
It was
Yeah, and I'm not the only one that cried during the eclipse, right? Jenica said that you and Melanie cried too.
it was intense. Like we're still trying to come off the mountain here.
I know.
It's such a journey. And then we came down and we went to the second court, and then we went to the lower court. And in that moment, they were talking about the heavenly messengers that were actually in that room. I don't know of any place on this earth that they can say, well, I mean, besides Jerusalem, but like they pinpoint exactly the very spot that Jesus Christ stood. What place? And we have that.
I know.
And I was sitting there, like, my sweet son Spencer was sitting next to me, and he just leaned into me, and I'm like, Christ stood right there. And then they were talking about Moses and Elias and Elijah. And Elijah for me, besides obviously Christ, but Elijah to me, for him to restore the sealing ordinances for families. It's special. And it was such, I mean, I could not sing the Spirit of God. They have us, we stood and sang the Spirit of God, and oh my word, the Spirit of God did reside with us, and I could not utter. My frame was shaking. I was in the presence of so many unseen people, and it was like a love note from heaven saying, you are on the right path, you're doing good, and this is exactly what you're called to do, is to find those family members that are missing, to seal them. And it all originated here in Kirtland. It was just one of those moments that I'm just still like decompressing, processing.